and also to some of the countries in the East. But despite this importance of the sector, it still suffers a lot of negative impacts, especially when we're thinking about climate change. And here, when it's about climate change, we're mainly thinking about the prolonged drought that we get in the country in some instances. And then during the rainy season, we have a lot of flood events, which impact negatively on the sector, where we have a loss of crops in the field as well as livestock, and also in terms of lives and livelihoods. And just to give an example of what we have seen in this year, between February and June of this year, approximately 5 million people were actually facing acute food insecurity in the country. Then when we think about how the country, in terms of our production system, this map here, you can see just some small areas that are actually green. And this is where we have what we call the main agricultural production taking place in those green areas. So this is what we call maybe the high producing agricultural production zones, when the rest of the country, as you can see, the yellows and the brown, this is basically the arid and the semi-arid regions. So this is basically what forms the greater part of the country. And looking at it from the agroecological zones and the percentages, the high potential and the medium potential production zones actually contribute up to 20% of the Kenyan land mass, which stands at, with the total land mass being around 500,000 square kilometers. So you can imagine with a country with 54 million people, and only 20% of the country is actually good for medium and high agricultural production, with the rest of the country being arid, semi-arid, and actually some places it's more of desert area. And in these areas, we have a lot of, mainly the main activities taking place here is pastoralism. And as you will see when I get to the examples of sustainable production, I'll be focusing more on these arid and the semi-arid regions. Well, with that background, then we ask ourselves, what is sustainable agriculture? And I think different people think of sustainable agriculture, sustainable production from different perspectives. And we have different terms that are used to represent sustainable agriculture, sustainable production. Some would think about organic farming. Others would think about just using low input. Others would think about conservation agriculture. Others, it's more about ecological production, free range production and all that. But all these are aspects that different people will think about when it comes to sustainable agriculture. But the main question is then, how do we know, or how would we rate sustainable agriculture? And going by the FAO definition, that's the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United States. They give about 5 key principles that at least a sustainable production system ought to meet. And one is a system should be able to increase, a sustainable system should be in a position to increase productivity, increase employment, as well as increase the value addition in the food system. And then number 2, it should be able to improve the livelihoods and also foster inclusive economic growth. Number 3, it should be able to enhance the resilience of the people and the communities and the ecosystem in general. And then number 4, it should be able to protect as well as enhance the natural resources that are available within the ecosystem. And then number 5, it should be guided by a governance system that is able to address any challenges that are happening within the ecosystem. So the next bit of the presentation, I'll be looking at how these 5 key principles that try to explain what a sustainable production system looks like have been adopted in the Kenyan agricultural sector. So I will be starting with the principle number 5. This is on the governance aspect, because I believe this is the anchor of all these other concepts. And when we think about the governance structure in Kenya, and in terms of supporting sustainable agriculture, one thing we need to understand is that the governance system will only ensure that there's the sustainable production if there is a right balance between the public sector and the private sector. And then this system should be able to ensure that there is equity and there is transparency and everyone actually feels included. And in the Kenyan context, this has been enshrined in the Kenyan Constitution that was adopted in 2010. And in some of the articles, actually the Article 43 of the Kenyan Constitution is very categorical that every person has a right to be free from hunger and to have adequate food of acceptable quality. And also they need to have access to clean, safe, and adequate amount of water. So the Constitution, when it comes to issues of equity, it is very clear and supports the system. And then when it comes to the distribution of the functions between the national and the county governments, because the Kenyan system, in terms of support of the system or the governance structure, is that we have a national government and then we have 47 county governments. So when it comes to the distribution of functions within the agricultural sector, this has actually been decentralized. And then this means that there is a decentralized capacity where people within the county governments are able to run their own functions when it comes to agricultural production. And just giving an outline of how this is happening is that at the national government, the issues of policy in terms of agricultural policy, veterinary policies, protection of environment and natural resources, we have the policies stipulated at the national level. And then when it comes to implementation of these policies, these functions have been devolved to the county level, where all the power and the functions of agriculture in terms of production, of animal husbandry, livestock sales, plant and disease control, all this is being carried out at the county government levels. Then the aspects of trade regulations and marketing, it's also being done at the county level. And then when it comes to implementation of the policies, whether all the policies in environmental issues, soil conservation, water conservation, all this is these functions have been decentralized and are being articulated at the county government. So what is happening is that the government at the national level collaborates with a lot of other institutions, some public institutions, other private institutions, the donor agencies or the development agencies, and comes up with major projects that are then kind of, when it comes to the implementations, this implementation is done by the county governments. And here I've just given an example of some of the projects that are focusing on sustainable production in the country, and we'll be seeing how some of these projects are actually able to achieve, or a very good example of what sustainable agricultural production is, and how the principles of sustainable production are being implemented in the country. And just going to the second, or the what we had as the first principle, that sustainable agricultural production should be one that increases productivity, one that offers or increases employment, as well as value addition in the food system. We realize that when we try to focus on increasing productivity, we should be doing this without encroaching into the environment. And so basically what we are saying is that we should try as much as possible to avoid expanding the production into the forest areas and all that. So how do we manage to do this? In Kenya, what we're doing is just adopting water and energy smart production systems. And here I'm giving one of example of a project that has been funded by the World Bank. It ran from 2017 to 2022, and its objective was to increase productivity and enhance resilience to climate risks in the targeted smallholder farming and pastoral communities in Kenya. And this was being implemented in 24 counties. So as I mentioned earlier, we have 47 counties. So basically you are talking about in partly half of the country, this is where this project has been implemented. And just giving, going back to just an example of one arid or semi-arid county where the project was implemented. And this was basically targeting the Maasai, or the indigenous people who are mainly dealing with livestock. And what the project did is that it managed to develop water infrastructure, such that because normally what happens with the Maasais and the pastoralists, they have to walk very long distances to get water, to get pasture for their livestock. And in that process, then what happens is that you have the livestock actually getting emaciated along the way in search of pasture and water. And so one way of increasing productivity is to ensure that these animals get water closer home, and then they don't have to walk for very long distances to get the water. And this would help in terms of increasing the quality of the meat that is coming from the slaughtered animals. So this project has managed to ensure that these livestock are not wasting a lot of energy or getting emaciated as they travel long distances in search of water. Then, as I mentioned, this is a very arid region, but we have seen this happening, all getting green. And what has managed what has led to this is just having the water infrastructure and then adopting this drip irrigation that is water efficient. And the people, these pastoralists, have actually kind of gotten to the third level of where they are adding value to their production system, that they are not just depending on the livestock, but they are also now getting into agricultural production, and they are able to produce vegetables, sell amongst themselves, and also sell to the neighboring arid regions. And then going to the third point in terms of the principles, a production system or a sustainable production system should ensure that there is improvement in livelihoods, as well as ensuring that there is inclusive economic growth within the area where this sustainable production is taking place. And basically what we mean by this is that it should be able to reduce poverty and also increase food security in the rural areas. And this would only happen through offering of adequate access to control and production resources to the producers, and also the issue of inclusivity, where they have to bring in women, youths, and men participating in the production system. And a very good example is another national project that's called the National Agricultural and Rural Inclusive Growth Project, that was also supported by the World Bank and being implemented in 21 counties. And I'm just going to give an example of one dairy cooperative in one of the counties, also a semi-arid county called Baringo. And in this county, a lot of farmers were mainly these are not pastoralists as such, but they keep local variety of the cows. And through this project, a lot of achievements have been made. And with the cooperative having started in 2009, and you can see how their production was, just producing less than 2,000 kilograms of milk per day. But this has changed over the period of this project, where they are now producing over 15,000 kilograms of milk in one day. And then you can also see the number of membership. This has increased from around 3,000 to almost 9,000 members. And when it comes to the aspect of inclusivity, the women participation in the project has actually, or in the dairy sector, has increased from 38 to 59%. And then the local breeds have actually been improved. Initially, where they were 95% local, at the moment you think of them being at 50%. And then the other aspect is value addition. With this processing plant here, these farmers are now going to process their own milk and yogurt, or more of value addition of this milk, and sell it to the community. So basically what we are saying, when it comes to issue of economic growth within the region, there is the aspect of employment of different youths, women, and men in this cooperative, in this processing plant. And also they are going to create employment for other people for the distribution of the milk that is being processed from this plant. Then going to the fourth principle, where sustainable production system should ensure protection and enhancement of natural resources. Here, basically what we are saying is that even as we expand, or as we look at ensuring that we are improving in production, then we shouldn't do this at the expense of the natural environment. So what happens is that in most cases, when people think about sustainable production, we're thinking about productivity. So people would think that maybe then we need to get into intensive production. Maybe that's how we get higher productivity. But at the same time, if we become intensive, maybe you're using more water resources, then we have to use fertilizers, we have to use pesticides, then this again will bring a negative impact into the environment in terms of either water pollution, or you also think about destroying the freshwater habitats, as well as reducing the crop and animal biodiversity. So what are we doing as a country in terms of protecting and enhancing natural resources? Just give an example of one project here that is a regional pastoral livelihood resilience project. This is currently ongoing, and it's supporting 14, or it's being implemented in 14 semi-arid counties, and it has a thematic component on natural resource management. And the main activities here is that it needs to develop or rehabilitate the water infrastructure. So in that case, when it comes to usage of water, then this should be used in an efficient way. Remember, I said it's most arid and semi-arid. So even the ability to have the water in the first place is a big challenge. So developing the water infrastructure, finding the water and developing the water infrastructure is important, and ensuring then that water is used in an efficient way. Then there's another activity that is focusing on reseeding the degraded rangelands, because basically what happens with the pastoralists, as they move their livestock, especially during the dry season, we have all these cows and camels and the goats just taking literally any kind of vegetation and leaving the place extremely open. And then we have a lot of wind erosion taking place in these areas. So one of the components of the project is to ensure that all these degraded areas are reseeded with pasture. And then so that we don't have kind of a cycle where after the rainy season, then all the pasture disappears. The project has also aimed at establishing strategic feed reserves through construction of hay stores for the community. And in the next slides, I will just show how the project has done. This is a water pan that has been done in one of the counties called Wajir. It's very dry. And with this, they have managed to get this water to collect the water during the rainy season. And then this water has been used in the production of pasture, also feeding the livestock. You can see here the camels enjoying the water from the water pan. The watering places have been provided. And then when it comes to the pasture, you can see the acacia trees up there can tell you that this is a very dry place, but you can see the pasture that has been grown using this water. And here in this picture, we can see women collecting the seeds from the pasture, and then these will be used in during the rainy seasons to be planted in other open fields. And then so that the vegetation remains, the pasture is actually harvested. They don't allow the cows, the livestock to come and feed directly onto the ground, but they harvest this and bale it and store it as hay in the hay stores. So I think those are just a few examples of what is happening within the livestock sector. But of course, this is not happening without challenges. And then I will then go to the last principle, that is a sustainable production system should ensure that there is the enhanced resilience of the communities and the ecosystem. And I think looking at the examples that I have given here, in the arid and the semi-arid regions, the extreme weather events, so then this means that it affects the marketing, and there's also aspect of pest invasion. I think the last 3, 4, 5 years, we have had locust invasion in the region, and also a lot of civil strife. When you talk about pastoralism, we also have a lot of insecurity, cattle rustling taking place in this region. So then a system should be able to prepare give some resilience to the people, to the communities, and to the ecosystems in general. And one solution that the government has provided is coming up with a technology that is able to more of a surveillance technology, where farmers from different regions, the arid regions, are able to access a platform where they can just get some information on what we expect in terms of the weather, also in terms of maybe agronomic changes, in terms of markets and all that. And I'm just going to show the example here of this platform. So a farmer from whichever region, you can just select which county you come from, your sub-county, and then you are able to get information on weather forecast, information on agronomic advisory, market advisory, and any other kind of advisory that one would require. So that is part of, and this is mainly aimed at ensuring that the farmers or these pastoralists have information that will prepare them in case of any eventualities that would be coming their way. And lastly, despite all these initiatives, we still feel that we need to upscale our sustainable production. And so here, basically, instead of looking at it more as an aspect of challenge, I think we just need to have more done, and this would require that then we have increased funding to support sustainable production. There's also need for increased capacity development in terms of the knowledge and skills to the communities, to the producers, on how to, on getting more skills and knowledge on sustainable farming practices. And then also there is need for increasing the infrastructure and technological support for our production systems. And finally, we need to increase or enhance the policy support and increased political will, because when we look at the number of policies that we have as a country and the level of implementation, I feel that we still have a gap in this. So this is an area that requires a lot of improvement. And with that, we come to the end of my presentation, and I say asanteni, that is Swahili for thank you, terima kasih. I hope I got it right. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Florence. It is a nice presentation and material for us. And as we know that sustainability is important key in agriculture, which is sustainability means that improving the productivity with minimal impact on the environment and also accepted by the society. And we can see in the presentation that agriculture plays an important role in the livelihood of Kenya people, and there are various key principles. There are 5 key principles for the sustainability aspect in Kenya. And we are going to the discussion session. Is there any question from the student?
Good evening from Indonesia, ma'am. I'm Angel from the Philippines, and also thank you for your wonderful lecture. So it's stated here in, the definition, one of the principles of sustainable agriculture is actually to increase productivity and specifically to increase employment, right? But then other lectures earlier, actually, they were talking about the importance of automation, which would probably decrease the employment rate of people. So do you think automation or the use of robots would be against the key principle of sustainable agriculture? Thank you.
Okay. What is your name?
Angel.
Angel, okay. Dr. Florence, you can answer the questions directly.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Angel, for your question. Definitely, when we have automation, we have reduction in terms of employment of the people involved. But I think here, basically, what we need is a balance. If you look at that first principle that is talking about increasing productivity, increasing employment, as well as increasing the value addition in the production system, you will find that maybe if we have automation, we are increasing productivity, but maybe the level of employment goes down. But what happens is that we also have value addition in terms of the production system. So what does it mean? Maybe the people who would have been engaged in doing the manual work are now at a higher level in value added production. So we may not have an increase in employment at that point, but then we will have people getting better paying jobs that come as a result of value added activities within the production system. So the idea is that maybe we will need a balance of this. And again, what will happen is that maybe at that production level, the number of people in employment goes low. But what happens at the next level of the chain in the processing bit? So if we have more production at the farm, and then we have more output that goes into the processing, then you can even have more people getting employed at the processing level. So it then doesn't mean that it affects the employment bit. Thank you.
Dr. Florence, any other questions from the students? Okay, if there are no questions, maybe they're still thinking about the questions. And then maybe one question from me, Dr. Florence.
Yes. Yes.
Previously, you say about the technology, and can you tell us about the technology that related to the sustainability in Kenya? Maybe about the reduce the nutrient in waste, and about maybe about the optimize the use of water in Kenya?
Thank you so much. I hope I get your name right, Tristiano.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, thank you so much. When it comes to technology, maybe my presentation here focused more on the arid and the semi-arid areas, where the aspect of technology or engaging technology is a little bit low. But when we come to the high potential areas, where we are doing the more of the horticultural production, where we are doing production of fresh vegetables and fruits, a lot of technology is being implemented here. One is use of, especially not at a smallholder farmer level, but more at the commercial production level, where you have like when it comes to water and input use, automation in terms of precision farming, in terms of water use, pesticide use, as well as fertilizer usage. This is happening, but at a larger production scale, not at the smallholder farming perspective. Then we also have some producers who are using drones to just do surveillance in their farms. But of course, this is not at the smallholder farmer level, but at the commercial production perspective. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Florence.
Yeah.
It is interesting topic, I think, because in Indonesia we have also much larger smallholder farming systems. And then any questions from the student? No more? Okay, if there are no questions, maybe we can close the session, the lecture session. Thank you so much, Dr. Florence Gachango. And before we close for the discussion, maybe there are a certificate presented by the committee, please. Here is the certificate from the committee to the Dr. Florence Gathoni Gachango. Please give applause for the Dr. Florence.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Florence
you.
Gachango. Maybe it is the end of this night session. Okay, thank you so much for all of you, and thank you. We are waiting to meet you in person, Dr. Florence. Thank you so much.
Yeah, hopefully someday. Sorry for keeping the students for so long. I know it has been a long day for them. Bye-bye. Have a good evening.
Thank you,
Okay,
Florence.
thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, good evening. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Pak Dodi. Okay, thank you so much for coming and join this night sessions. Let me introduce myself first. After the okay, my name is Tristan Tanugroho. I am a junior lecturer in Faculty of Animal Science. I am the junior of Dr. Dimas. Okay, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nggak difoto?
Oh ya, dipoto.
Oh, jahat. Sebentar.
Oke guys.
Musiknya apa ya? Seterang aku ya?
Dah, bebas.
Ada yang mau
Thank you so much, guys. Now
Cepat ya,
you can go back to your room and take a rest for the tomorrow activity. And don't forget to give a sign and also fill up the process today for the tonight class. We have some the list in there. Just sign, fill up with your name, and see you tomorrow. Take a rest and have a nice night.